Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. So in the last video, in part 1, we looked at the word hell in the Old Testament and we found out that it means pit. And we're told in Revelation that that pit is caused by an asteroid impact and nuclear meltdown. So it says it's a lake of fire that will be on the earth, and that's the reason God has to intervene and rescue life on the planet. But in this video, we're going to go over the scriptures that seem to talk about where this asteroid is coming from and how the elite know that this asteroid is going to impact and that they're planning to save themselves and let everyone else die and then rise out of this event afterward. But the texts say they will not succeed with that plan. So we'll go into some of that, and then we'll also go into what the texts say about the orbit of a celestial object, how that ties in, and also the 7,000-year cycle. Okay, so once we get into the New Testament, there are several different words for the word hell. And what we're going to find out is there are also multiple meanings of this word. So we know hell is the asteroid impact and that everybody's rescued before that. But here in Psalm 16:10, it says, "You will not leave my soul in hell." And in Psalms 86, it says, "Great is your mercy toward me. You saved me from hell." Well, and then also again in Proverbs 15 and 23, it says hell is something we can be delivered from. So we've looked at this in the other videos. We know that there are 3 rescues: first the bride, then the 2 witnesses, then the 144,000. And the texts make it very clear that all 3 of these rescues will occur before the hell event, that nuclear meltdown. And that makes sense. But if that's true, and I mean, the reason that makes sense is because in Matthew 24, it says no flesh will survive. So of course we're going to be rescued before the hell event, before the nuclear meltdown. So then why do these scriptures say there are those who will be delivered from hell? Well, one way that can make sense is if this word hell refers not only to the pit that the asteroid impact will create, but also the whole civilization that will be destroyed from that asteroid impact. So hell may refer to that whole civilization. In other words, our civilization, because it makes it very clear in Daniel that we're talking about this time period right here. So one way we can understand that is if we imagine that we had time travel capability, for example, that we could go back in time to when the dinosaurs were on the earth. And if we imagine that we could go, let's say, to an area where we know there are a lot of dinosaur bones and go back in time to see how they were when they are alive. If we could do that, then the pit of dinosaur bones that we knew was caused by the asteroid may eventually become the reference for the dinosaur existence itself to us, since that pit was what caused their complete destruction. So once we can understand that this information in these texts seems to have been given to us from the future, then it makes sense that for those living in a future time, this asteroid pit, when they're looking at it in the future, to them it may represent our entire civilization, since the texts tell us it'll be completely destroyed. And that might also explain the meaning of the dry bones in Ezekiel. So Ezekiel talked about a lot of really bizarre things. According to some people, he was describing a spaceship or a time ship or something. But chapter 37 is one of the strangest. He describes this valley of dry bones, and he says they come back to life. So first their bones come together, then the flesh covers the bones, then the skin covers the flesh, and then the breath of life comes into them and they stand back up and they're alive again. These dead bones in this valley, they come back to life. So it sounds kind of creepy, but one possible explanation of this is that God took Ezekiel backward through time, or showed him a vision of going backward through time. So also notice it says in verse 9 that the breath of life came from the 4 winds. So come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live. And the interesting thing about that is we know that those who are rescued will come from the four winds at the end. So it says in verse 31, this is Matthew 24, and they shall gather his elect from the four winds from heaven. So that's when we're told that those who are rescued return to the earth. They come from the four winds. So this valley that Ezekiel saw with all the dry bones in it, that may actually be the pit, the great chasm or canyon where the asteroid slides into the earth. So the texts make it clear that deliverance or the rescue will occur before the nuclear meltdown. So when it says you will be delivered from hell, it means you will be delivered from it by being taken out beforehand. So if you imagine, for example, that you were going to go back in time and save some of the dinosaurs before the asteroid strikes, then in your mind, you would be saving those dinosaurs from the asteroid, even though technically you're going to gather them prior to the asteroid impact. In your mind, you're still saving them from that asteroid. Okay, so that's what it means when it says you will be delivered from hell. You're not going to go through it. Okay, and then this is really interesting. This is Isaiah 28. It says, they have made a covenant with death, and with hell they are at agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us, for we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have hid ourselves. And then it says, and your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, you shall be trodden down by it. Okay, if hell is caused by an asteroid impact, and we know that it is, we talked about that in part 1, why would anyone make a covenant with that? Because that's what this seems to be saying right here in Isaiah 28. And the answer might be in Revelation 17, where it says, the beast shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So the bottomless pit, that's the asteroid impact, that's hell. We talked about that in part 1. But the texts also clearly say to us that the beast will be destroyed by the lake of fire, which is the pit. So, again, if you don't know what we're talking about here, you need to watch part 1. But how does the beast ascend out of something that clearly destroys it? And this was confusing to me for the longest time, trying to understand this. How does that work? So we have to actually look at the meanings of these words, and then it makes perfect sense. So right here in Revelation 17, verse 8, we're going to look at the word shall. It's number 3195. And it means to intend to do something, to have something in mind. So it's saying the beast intends to ascend out of the bottomless pit. But this word ascend, number 305, it means to be borne up or to arise. So the beast intends to arise. And the phrase out of, which is number 1537, it means from or by. So the beast intends to arise from or by the pit. Okay, but this word translated as and, which is number 2532, it also means but. So this is literally saying that the beast intends to arise from or by the pit, but will go into perdition instead. So we know this pit is caused by the asteroid impact. Revelation 9 tells us that. So it's basically saying to us, the beast intends to arise from the asteroid impact. And who's the beast? That's the world government. We already know that. We've talked about that in the video, The Dragon, the Beast, and the Harem. It's linked below if you want to check that out. But Amos 5 also seems to confirm this. So we look at Amos 5 verse 7. We're going to look at the word turn. It's number 2015. It also means change. So you who change, and then this word 4941 means time or measure. So you who change the time and measurement of wormwood. Okay, so remember, wormwood, this is Revelation 8, verse 11. Wormwood is the name of the star that falls to earth. So that's the asteroid right there. The name of it is wormwood. So Amos 5 is saying, you who change the time or measurement of wormwood. And then this word 3240 right after that means make quiet. So you who change the time to wormwood and make quiet righteousness in the earth. Well, this word translated as righteousness, it also means truthfulness. So this is literally saying, you who change the time to wormwood and make quiet truthfulness in the earth. Okay, so I'm going to go through and just share with you the alternate translation here of Amos 5 and then also Job 9 and Joel 3:14. And I don't want to take up too much of your time showing every single one of these definitions, but if you want to verify, I do have 3 different online concordances linked in the description below this video, so feel free to verify this. But it says, this is Amos 5, verse 7, 8, and 17. It says, you who change the time to wormwood and make quiet truthfulness in the earth. Seek him that passed the Pleiades and Orion and turns the darkness into the break of day and makes the day dark with night, that summons for the waters of the sea and pours them upon the surface of the earth. The Yehovah is his name. So it's saying either the Yehovah is the name of he who changes the time to wormwood and makes quiet the truthfulness in the earth. And that goes back to the video, The Dragon, the Beast, and the Harem, because Hosea told us that Yehovah is the beast. So is this referring to the beast here? It's saying the beast, which we know is a one world government. Is it the beast that's changing the time and measurement to wormwood? It's either saying that, because it tells you right here, the Yehovah is his name, ye who changes the time to wormwood and makes quiet truthfulness in the earth. Or it's saying that Yehovah is him that passes the Pleiades and Orion and turns darkness into the break of day, etc. So it's either or. It's either Yehovah, a celestial object, or Yehovah the beast. We don't know. It's either or. But that's very interesting right there, because clearly somebody is changing the time or measurement to wormwood to make quiet the truthfulness in the earth. Then Job 9, 5 through 9 says it's talking about Yehovah again. It seems to imply it's a celestial object in this case, because we also know Yehovah has multiple meanings. And there's layers of meanings to that as well. We have the good Lord, we have the bad Lord. There are a lot of different things going on in these texts. But Job 9, 5 through 9 says, it's talking about Yehovah, and it says, which removeth the mountains and they know not, which overturneth them in his anger, which shakes the earth out of her place, and the pillars tremble, which commands the sun, and it riseth not, and seals up the stars, which alone bends the heavens and treads upon the waves of the sea, which passes Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades, and the chambers of the south, which passes great in intensity, unsearchable, and beyond one's power, without declaring, lo, he goes by me, and I see him not. He passes on, but I perceive him not. That seems pretty important right there as well. So, again, it's saying that this is the Yehovah. It's talking about the Yehovah here. And notice it says he passes Arcturus, Orion, Pleiades, and the chambers of the south. Okay, so what are the chambers of the south? It's talking about the southern portion of the solar system, so south of the ecliptic plane that the planets revolve around the sun. So it's telling us this object, it seems to be telling us this object, wormwood. It seems to be referring to wormwood, at least partly here. So some object, some celestial objects, it's telling us, is coming from south of the ecliptic. Well, the interesting thing about this is the southern portion of the solar system can also be referred to as the underworld. So the word hell in the Bible also means underworld. So on the one hand, we're told that wormwood will impact the earth, creating a huge pit here in Revelation 9. And the word pit is what this word hell means. But on the other hand, it seems we're told not only what causes the pit, but where wormwood is coming from. It's coming from the underworld, south of the ecliptic. And it says it passes, it's talking, whatever this celestial object is, it says it's passing Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades. And Orion is right here. The Pleiades are in Taurus. Arcturus is over here. So this may be the path of the object here or here. This is just a hypothetical chart. Maybe this is it. We don't know. But it says, he goes by me, but I don't see him. And then in Joel 3, it says, multitudes, multitudes in the deep trench, for the day of the Lord is near in the deep trench. So again, the deep trench, that pit in the day of the Lord. So we already talked about this in the other videos. The day of the Lord is right here when the asteroid impacts. That's the day of the Lord. So that's the deep trench that Joel 3 seems to be talking about as well. Okay, and then Proverbs 5:5, it's talking about hell again. And it says, her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell. Well, the interesting thing about Proverbs 5 is it also mentions wormwood. So I wondered what the real meaning of this chapter might be, the underlying meaning. So I actually did a really intense word investigation in this. And it also seems to be referring to a celestial body. So it says, the border of another place. And again, these definitions, you can verify this with the online concordances. I'm not going to force you to go through the whole thing and look at every single definition, but it's basically seems to be saying here, the border of another place, drop down, shake to pieces. Its train scatters, waxes fat. Something about the latter time is bitter pain. Something about wormwood, be alert, break into pieces, laid waste, dried up. And then it says something like, according to the pace of, and then descend, and then its pace, something about take on underworld. And then it says something about the path be quickened or renewal. Her revolution, notice right here, this word means track or revolution. So again, it seems to be talking about the orbit here. Its orbit wanders, is unstable, that you cannot know it. I mean, that seems really important right there. Its orbit or its revolution is unstable. It wanders. You can't know it. And then it says, hear me now. Hear me now. The path is removed, extends, does not draw near. Or it may be saying, or it may be saying that the path does not extend, but draws near, draws forth of its abode. Stretches out, extends, something of majesty, following a measure of time, repeats. So we're talking about a cycle here. Acts harshly, foreigner, another place. Be wary of power and pain in the abode. And then it actually has the word alien. I mean, kind of bizarre. I thought unfamiliar disaster, and thou groan and roar in the latter time when all mankind, and then something about left behind and destroyed. And then it says the enemy is bound. It seems to say the enemy is bound. And then it talks about the it says, you have not regarded the thunderings of the throwing or shooting, nor hearken to them. And so keep in mind, this is thousands of years old. I mean, it's been translated and retranslated, and who knows how it's been twisted. But I also thought it was kind of interesting, the word Mayan. I mean, they have the word Mayan in here. And then it talks about a pit, the pit right here, something pouring out of the pit, or something severs pit, and then scattered, dispersed, abroad, divided, violence. Again, it's talking about a foreigner, another place, something about being cast out, destroyed. And then we seem to have both. It says the blessed rejoice, the beloved be raised up, elevated, have mercy on. But then at the same time it's saying that, it's saying something about the goat and the cursed. Boil, it's saying boil. And then it's saying, it talks about being bound right down here again. So, very, very bizarre. I don't know. I just wonder if this chapter originally was talking about a celestial object. It's talking about wormwood, and it does seem to be referring to a celestial object, possibly. So, that's something that's very bizarre. And the thing about that is that matches what other ancient texts are talking about as well. So it makes sense in the sense that it ties in with what these other ancient stories are talking about. Okay, so to get back to Isaiah 28, why does it say they make a covenant with this pit, this underworld, this asteroid impact that's coming? It tells us because they are planning to rise out of this asteroid strike. They're planning to gain power from it. That's the covenant that they make with this pit. They make the covenant with the asteroid that's coming, because they say to themselves, right here, Isaiah 28:15, they say to themselves, when the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us. For we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood we have hid ourselves. But then it says in verse 18, but your covenant with death, your covenant with this asteroid impact is what it's saying, because that's what we know hell is. We talked about that in part 1. It says your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with this asteroid impact shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, you will be trodden down by it. That's what Isaiah 28 is saying. And there are a lot of reasons to believe that the elites do know what's coming and they're preparing for it. I mean, we've got this Project Wormwood, Learmonth Solar Observatory in Australia. We have these Georgia Guidestones that engraved on it, it says maintain humanity under 500 million. Well, we have 7 billion people on the planet. How would that happen? There would have to be a lot of, billions of people would have to die. Then we have the Denver International Airport. Very bizarre things about that. A lot of people say that it's this huge underground base, but we've got the cargo facilities here that were literally built in the shape of the human seed carrying organ. Can I say that? Very strange. And then also in Denver International Airport, we have these cryptic murals that seem to depict an apocalyptic event, war, and then, a new world of peace rising out of that. And then we have the Norway Doomsday Vault, etc., etc. I mean, there's many things. We have all the underground bunkers and underground cities. And then, of course, we've gone into heaven as well. We have the International Space Station. We've gone to the moon. So what is their covenant with hell? They believe they will survive this asteroid impact, and all those people that they choose will survive with them, but everyone else is going to die. That's their covenant with death and with the asteroid impact. But Amos 9 says that's not going to happen. It says, though they dig into hell, and hell we know also means grave, so it can mean underground. Though they dig underground, my hand shall take them. Though they climb up to heaven, I will bring them down. And though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, which I think is Mount Carmel, I will search and take them out. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, I will command the serpent, and he shall bite them. So again, they're intending to escape this event and survive it, but they won't. And Luke 17 confirms that as well, verse 33. Whoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. So again, those people that are part of that covenant with death, part of that covenant with the asteroid impact that's coming, that they know about, that they're lying about. Remember, those who change the time to wormwood, that make quiet truthfulness in the earth, those who seek to save their lives at the expense of everyone else will lose it, will lose their lives. They will die. But those who basically sacrifice themselves for others, they will live. So again, Matthew 24 also says, no flesh will survive except those who are saved by the Elohim, those who are rescued. So Revelation 17 again says the beast intends that one world government. It tells us that in Daniel, that beast is the one world government. It says the beast intends to arise from that asteroid impact, but will go into perdition instead. So as a side note, it does tell us that those people that are part of that elite group have the option to repent. I talk about this in the video on the 7 candlesticks. It does say that they have the option to repent. They can repent, but if they don't, it clearly says that they will not survive at all. That's that one group. Out of the 7 groups, there's only one group that if they don't repent, they won't survive at all. So, but they do have the option to repent. Okay, so these are the rest of the scriptures that in the Old Testament that talk about hell. We already looked at Amos 9. And I just want to point out one more thing in the Old Testament. In Ezekiel 32, where it says, the strong and the mighty are gone down, and they lie uncircumcised. They're in the midst of hell, they lie uncircumcised. This word uncircumcised, it's the word number 6189. And it's the word arel. And it does mean uncircumcised, but it also means to remain unharvested. Right here, it's the same word, to remain unharvested. So it's saying, we know the harvest is at the end, right? This is Revelation 14 right here. It says, the harvest of the earth is ripe. The angel thrusted his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. So we know the harvest happens at the wrath. And we know the wrath occurs right here at the asteroid impact. We talk about that in the video on the 7 trumpets. It's linked below. So that's the harvest. So when it says in Ezekiel 32 that they will lie in hell, which we know is this pit, unharvested, that makes sense because the harvest occurs before that pit of hell. Right here, the last harvest is 144,000. So we also talk about that in the video on the escape from the serpent. We talk about it in the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and all of that. The first shall be last. So remember, the 144,000, clearly it says in Revelation 14, at the wrath, they are at the throne. But they're sealed right here. So there's no question about it. They are the last group that's rescued. But just as a side note, the reason they are called the first fruits is because Jesus was the first fruits. So it says in the text, it says Jesus is the first fruits. And Jesus was born into the Jewish lineage. So the 144,000 are the 12 tribes of Israel, 12,000 from each tribe. That's why it says they're the first fruits. Jesus came out of them, and Jesus was the first fruits. But the first shall be last. They are actually the last group to be rescued. But everybody is harvested or rescued prior to that hell. So in Ezekiel 32, when it says they lie unharvested in the midst of hell, that makes sense. Because again, we know the pit is here, that's hell, and the harvest happens prior to that. So in the New Testament, there are a few different words translated as hell. So first in Matthew 5, the word translated as hell is number 1067, Gina, and it was originally the Valley of Hinnom. And Hinnom literally means lamentation, and the definition of lamentation is the passionate expression of grief or sorrow, weeping. So in Matthew 5, the word hell means the valley of sorrow. So again, it may be talking about this chasm or pit caused by the asteroid impact. The valley of sorrow is another name for it. So that great pit, that valley of sorrow. And the valley of sorrow is also mentioned in Matthew 10, right here, 1067, the valley of sorrow. And Matthew 10 is kind of interesting because Jesus is talking to the 12 apostles here, and this is 2,000 years ago, and he's telling them that they're going to go through tribulation. And we know they did go through persecution. And not only did the followers of Christ go through persecution right around here, around 78 AD, but also through the Dark Ages. So that's true. But the really interesting thing about everything that Jesus was talking about is that it's layered. He's talking to everybody for over a 2,000-year time period, all at the same time. So on the one level, he's talking to the apostles right then and there about what they're going through. But at the same time, layered, there's multiple levels to what he's saying. That's what makes it so interesting and so alive and real. Because he's also talking to us in here. So he's saying to them, okay, look, you're going to go through tribulation and you will be killed. Because he says in verse 28, don't fear those which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Okay, so this word that's translated as soul, it's number 5590, and it also means mind. So it says, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both mind and body in hell. And the word for hell here is 1067 again, the valley of sorrow. So he's saying to them, basically, you're going to be killed, but don't worry about that, because that's nothing compared to the kind of persecution that will happen just prior to the asteroid impact in the valley of sorrow, when they kill not only your body, but your mind. Because clearly he's saying here that this killing of the mind and body is happening in the valley of sorrow. That's on the earth. So we know that this is something that's happening in our generation. These horrific mind control experiments, they've come out, they've talked about it. Clinton administration apologized for it. It is happening. We all know that. And many of the victims that go through some of this horrific experimentation would probably rather be killed than to go through years and years and years of tormenting experimentation on their mind. Right here in Revelation 9, it says, right after it talks about the pit and the asteroid impact, it says, in those days, humans will seek death. They will wish they could die. So those days, quote unquote, could refer to both the days prior to the asteroid impact and immediately after that. It's just those days, referring to the last days. So he says, he which is able to destroy both mind and body in hell, in the valley of sorrow. So remember, we're told in Zechariah, and we talk about this in part 1, that this valley will be populated in the future after the destruction has passed. And we're also told that the Lord looks upon this valley and sees the dried bones of the dead, but is able to bring them back to life. So again, another way of understanding how that's possible is the Lord is looking at this event from the future and is able to go back in time to save some of them. Because otherwise, we're told it destroys all life in Matthew 24. So, in a way, from the Lord's perspective, this valley, this chasm or pit caused by the asteroid represents something that happened in the past, a destruction in the past, a civilization that existed in the past. So this valley represents that civilization that was destroyed. And then in Psalm 23, it seems to confirm that, because it says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." Okay, why does it say shadow of death? Why doesn't it just say, "I walk through the valley of death"? And one possibility is that a shadow can represent the past. So the sun, by the way, this picture, the sun is shining on this object, casting a shadow right here. So the sun can represent the future, or the 1,000-year reign with Christ on the earth. So this reign in the future right here can represent the sun. And this asteroid impact right here, this hellfire, this nuclear event that's caused out of that, which is the pit, the valley of sorrow, that is before the 1,000-year reign of light. So in a way, that pit or that valley of sorrow is like a shadow in the past. So we are actually walking now in the valley of the shadow of death, because it hasn't happened yet. We're not walking in the pit itself, but there are still people walking through this area that's going to be hit by the asteroid strike, but it's not the valley of death yet. It's the shadow of that valley of death. So they're walking through the shadow of the valley of death right before the impact. So in Matthew 10, he says, "Don't worry about those who will kill only your body. Fear those who can kill both your body and your mind in hell, in the valley of sorrow." He seems to be talking about the future, just prior to the asteroid impact, because it's from his perspective, from the perspective of someone who has already been in the future. So this is the valley of sorrow, where they conducted horrific experiments, where they killed the mind as well as the body, and they were destroyed. So this valley of sorrow, just prior to the asteroid impact, that was what was going on. So that can be one level of understanding here. Okay, but in Matthew 11, there's another word for hell, and it's number 86, and it's the Greek word Hades. And it's the name of the Greek god Hades, who was renamed Pluto during the Roman Empire. So Pluto, the god of the underworld, is hell, basically, in Matthew 11 and also in Matthew 16. So right here, the gates of hell, the gates of the underworld. So Pluto is the name for hell, and it's also the name given to the planet that was discovered in the 1930s that they originally thought was Planet X. So Planet X was the generic name astronomers gave to this planet that they believed was in the outer solar system beyond Neptune, causing deviations in the orbits of Neptune and Uranus. I have a video on that, and I'll try to link it below. It's a video on the history of Planet X. But they soon found out that Pluto was not that object they were looking for, and now they don't even consider Pluto a planet at all. But there were many astronomers, well-known astronomers, that had very good reasons to believe that Planet X was still out there. And some of them believed that it was in the southern region of the solar system. So this is a quote from Robert Harrington, who is a Naval Observatory astronomer. And he said that Planet X was predicted to be in the southern region of the solar system. So again, south of the ecliptic plane. And remember, that's where Job said it was, in the chambers of the south. So that's another implication here in this definition of the word hell. When it's Hades or Pluto, it's making reference to, on the one hand, the first name that they gave Planet X, which they believed was in the southern region of the solar system. So that's probably why they called it Pluto, the god of the underworld, because they believed it was down there. But we also know that this word hell refers to the pit that's caused by the asteroid impact, otherwise known as the Valley of Sorrow. So it seems to be the name, the actual word hell, seems to be referring not only to the what, the asteroid impact, but also to the where the asteroid is coming from. So it could be that it's coming from the southern regions of the solar system. It seems to imply that. So maybe even dislodged by a Planet X object or something that's way out here, like many astronomers believe. So who knows? But so to recap, we know in the Old Testament the word for hell is primarily Sheol, which means underworld, pit. And then in the New Testament, we have the word Hades here, which again is underworld or Pluto. It also means grave. And then we have the word Gehenna, which is the Valley of Sorrow, again making reference to the pit. And also the word Tartaru, which refers to the lower region again. And also Tartarus, which we know there's a story about the pit of Tartarus. So again, it's talking about the pit here. So all of the words in the biblical text that are translated as the word hell, they all seem to refer to either the asteroid impact or the location where the asteroid comes from in the solar system. Okay, but we need to look at Revelation finally, because there's a lot in here that seems confusing at first glance. So in Revelation 1, it says, I am he that lives and was dead and have the keys of hell. Well, we're also told in Revelation 20 that the angel had the key of the bottomless pit. So that bottomless pit then is hell, because right here I have the keys to hell. The angel has the keys to the bottomless pit. So the bottomless pit is hell. And we already talked about that in part 1 anyway. So we already know that. And the pit is caused by the asteroid. So there you have it. The bottomless pit is hell, and it's caused by the asteroid strike. So we talk about that in part 1. And then we're told in Revelation 6 that hell follows after the pale horse. It says, I looked, and a pale horse, and hell followed with him. But the word that was translated as with, which is right here, number 3326, we already know that's the word meta, which we've looked at before, and it means both with and after. So in other chapters of Revelation and elsewhere in the Bible, this word is translated as after. So like right here in Revelation 7, it says, and after these things, that's the same word, number 3326. And also in Matthew 24, it's the same word, 3326. It can mean both after or with. But in Revelation 6, it's translated as with. So again, the same word, 3326, means both with and after. And the way we figure out which definition is the proper meaning is we have to compare it to other verses in the text so that we can get a solid timeline. And we've done that right here. So the asteroid hits at the end of a 1260-day period of tribulation, creating the pit and nuclear meltdown that is referred to in the Bible as hell or the lake of fire. So Revelation 6 is saying hell follows either with or after the pale horse. So we look at the timeline and we see the pale horse is in the 4th seal, and the hell event, the asteroid impact, occurs in the 6th and 7th seal. So that confirms right there that yes, hell does come after the pale horse, which is in the 4th seal. So all of that is explained more in the video on the 7 trumpets and the 7 seals, and it's linked below in the description if you want to check that out. But now we need to look at Revelation 20, because this is where it gets, it can seem very confusing at first glance. So it says in Revelation 20, the dragon, that old serpent, which is the false accuser. We've already looked at the meanings of these words. So the false accuser and the adversary lay in the bottomless pit caused by that asteroid impact. And it says, it shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosened a little season. And then it repeats that in verse 7, and it says, when the 1,000 years are expired, the adversary shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations. And that's the standard translation that was done a couple thousand years ago. And it doesn't really seem to make sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the meanings of these words and see if we can understand this a little better. So first of all, in Revelation 20 verse 3, the word translated as him, which is number 846, it also means it or them. And we know from previous examination that the dragon is more than one person. We talk about that in the video, The Dragon, the Beast, and the Harem. It's linked below in the description. But basically the dragon is an organized group. It's also connected to the beast, which is a government system. So the more accurate translation here would be it. So it cast it, and we already know this word translated as cast, number 906, also means lay or lie. So it lay in the bottomless pit. And we looked at that in the last video in part 1. And then this word into also means in right here. So literally it's saying it lay in the bottomless pit. And then this word 2532, and it means even. So even. And then this word 2808 means to be devoid of pity toward one. So it lay in the bottomless pit even without pity. And then we have the word 2808 again, which also means to obstruct the entrance into the kingdom of heaven. Okay. And then we have 4972, which was translated as seal, which also means concealed. So concealed. And then this word 1883 also means above. So concealed above it. And the word translated as deceived, 4105, means be out of the way. And the word that was translated as the nations, which is number 1484, that also means multitude. So we know the multitude is those who are rescued, and then they return to earth. So it says, and it lay in the bottomless pit, even without pity, obstructed from heaven, and concealed above it, that it should be out of the way of the multitude. So remember, the multitude comes back to earth. And then this word 3363 right here means albeit not. And then 2089 right here means anymore or yet. So it lay in the bottomless pit, even without pity. It was obstructed from heaven and concealed above it, that it should be out of the way of the multitude, albeit not yet till the 1,000 years be fulfilled. So it's obstructed from heaven, it says. And that makes sense because we're already told that all the survivors are rescued and taken to the safe place prior to the nuclear fire. So if it's laying here in the pit, then it has been obstructed from heaven, because this is after all of the rescues. It's after the harvest. And then it also says it'll be out of the way of the multitude. And that makes sense, because the multitude will be living on the earth with Christ for 1,000 years after that. So it'll be concealed above and out of the way of the multitude that are living on the earth here. So that may mean that it will not be visible above the ground, meaning it's covered up. It's going to be covered up by the earth. That's civilization. That's what it's referring to. Or even concealed under the sea. So it's concealed from above. It's concealed above it, that it should be out of the way of the multitude. And then down here, we have the word 3326 again, which also means with, right here. And then the word 5023 is next, and that means these things. So with these things. And then number 3089, which was translated as be loosened, it also means dissolve or be done away with, demolished, destroyed, overthrown, broken up, or deprived of authority. So with these things, it must be deprived of authority or destroyed. And then this word 5550, it means while. So it's saying it lay in the bottomless pit even without pity, and it was obstructed from heaven and concealed above it, that it should be out of the way of the multitude, albeit not yet till 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And with these things, it must be deprived of authority a little while. So it might seem kind of strange that it's saying it's deprived of authority for a little while, but we'll get into that a little bit later, because it seems to be referring to a cycle, but we'll talk about that in a minute. First, we're going to look at verse 7. So this word and in verse 7, number 2532, it also means indeed. So right here, 2532, it means indeed. So indeed, when the 1,000 years are expired, or number 5055. And 5055 also means to be performed or executed, in the sense of executing an order or command. So when the 1,000 years are executed, the adversary shall be, and then 3089, again, that's loosened, which means deprived of authority or demolished or destroyed. And then 1537 means from, so deprived of authority from. And then 5438 means guard or watch. So it's saying, indeed, when the 1,000 years are executed, the adversary shall be deprived of authority from its guard or watch, and shall go out to deceive the nations of the earth, to gather them together to battle, basically. So that's the battle against God, known as Armageddon. It says the adversary will be deprived of its position watching the earth, so it makes war against God. And that makes sense. But we know that that war against God is right here. It's that Armageddon happens right at the asteroid impact. We're told that. And that's right before the 1,000 years start. So it seems that this word that was translated as expired, it seems a more accurate translation would be executed, meaning to perform or execute a command. So referring to the appointed time of Christ's return is what it seems to be saying, which is the start of the 1,000 years. That's very different. So that's what it seems to be saying. So we know that Armageddon event is before the 1,000 years, and it says when that 1,000 years is executed, then the then Armageddon will happen. So it's a commandment of that event that's starting at that time. Okay, so Revelation 20 verse 3, the adversary is bound 1,000 years. It lay in the bottomless pit without pity, obstructed from heaven and concealed above it and out of the way of the multitude until the 1,000 years are fulfilled. And it's deprived of its authority for a little while. Okay, so it's not loosened for a little while. It's deprived of authority for a little while. So again, this word right here means both loosened or deprived of authority. So this deprived of authority for a little while, that little while refers to the 1,000 years while Christ is reigning the earth. And this is where we need to have the understanding that we're talking about a cycle here. It's a 7,000 year period. So the 1,000-year reign, okay, I'm just going to throw this out there as food for thought. When we put all of this together, it seems to point to this, a 7,000-year cycle where the 1,000-year reign rejuvenates the earth. That's the restoration back to the original owner. It has to do with the jubilees there. The restoration rejuvenates the earth back to its Eden state, its pristine state, and then the cycle starts all again. It starts over again. After the Elohim leave, then the fall happens. Humanity degrades over a period of 6,000 years until the Elohim return again. And each time this happens, the degradation starts when the Elohim leave, and then the Cains kill the Abels, they form their beastly governments, they go around conquering the world, and then ultimately, after 6,000 years, they actually fight against God when God returns, because by that time, they don't know who God is anymore. They think the ancient records are just missed. And this may be the cycle that repeats. So remember in Ecclesiastes 1, it says, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. So it's referring to a cycle. These things happen over and over. Also in Revelation 22, it says, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. So again, it seems referring to that first 1,000 years and the last 1,000 years. It may be referring to that. And then here in Genesis 6, 3 and 4, again, this is an alternate translation. You can verify the meanings of these words in the concordance links below, or in any concordance. It says, and the Yehovah said, my warlike energy and executive and administrative power shall not always govern man, for that he is also deceived, yet his days shall be 120 lifetimes. So that 120 lifetimes, if that's referring to jubilees, which are every 50 years, then that's 6,000 years. It's basically saying here the warlike energy shall not always govern man, only for 6,000 years. So again, that confirms right here that for 6,000 years, that's the warlike energy. And the beast, that's humanity. I mean, that is the governmental system. Ultimately, at the end of the 6,000 year period, it's a world government system. But it's humanity. It's the fall of humanity. Humanity has gone into this warlike, lower animal type mentality when the Elohim are gone. But when the Elohim return, everything's restored again. So that may be what it's referring to here. And that would make sense. That would explain why it says that the beast will be deprived of authority for a little while. Because when you consider the entire cycle of 7,000 years, the 1,000-year reign is a little while compared to all 7,000 years. So maybe that's what it means. Just some food for thought. And then also we know that that cycle is not just mentioned in the biblical text. It's in many other ancient texts as well. So, okay, so that's the timeline. This right here is the timeline that's laid out in the book of Revelation. So this is solid. This is what it says the timeline is. And we are right here in the fourth seal. So that's where it appears that we are. And I talk about that in the videos on the seven seals and the seven trumpets. And also you can find some of this information in the video on the escape from the serpent. So also the reason we know that we're right there is because in the book of Daniel we're given a history of the growth of the beast empire, the governments, the world government now, and how it's developed over time, over thousands of years. So that's how we know we're right here, because it gives us that history. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope that you got something out of this. If nothing else, just food for thought, something to think about. And if you do appreciate this work, I hope you'll at least consider supporting it, because I do all this by myself. I'm a single mom. You know that. Those of you that are supporting this work, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you're getting this out to everybody else, and I think it's important. I think it's really something that I think a lot of people are benefiting from. So thank you so much to those people that are making it possible. And if you do want more information on anything I've talked about, there are tons of links in the description below this video. I also have a document, an ebook that I created, and it's on Amazon if you want to get it there, and I also have it on my website as well. So that's linked below in the description. So I hope you all are doing well, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.